Hello everyone, I'm Mono, and in this video I'll be going over some tips that are specific for update 8. So I'll be talking about the use of supplies and building structures, because that's a big part of the game now, and if you mess up or if you don't want to use those structures to your advantage, you and your team will be at a loss. Alright, starting out at number 1, and this might be obvious to some, but use the supply truck at the start of the game to build a garrison at the edge of the front line. This has become the top priority for me at the start of the round, because if one team does this and the other one does not, then the fight for that middle point will be very unbalanced. So start of the round, if you're playing squad leader, spawn wherever that supply truck is and drive off. Do not wait for anyone, because the sooner you do this, the sooner your entire team is able to spawn. Some people will get upset that you're not waiting for another squad leader or engineer or something, but that can make you lose a lot of time that you won't be getting back, and there's no guarantee that you won't get an assault or AT or supply player to join you, which is kind of pointless at this moment in the game. Depending on the situation, you can stop a bit earlier to place a backup garrison if you find a nice spot for it that is both on your way and you know for a fact won't be within the 200 meters of the frontline garrison. Some things to keep in mind while you do this is talk to the other squad leaders and tell them to hold their spawns until you build a garrison. Some people are just gonna spawn anyway, even if you tell them what you're gonna do, and even if it takes much longer for them to get into the action, which makes absolutely no sense. And I figure those are the same kind of people that will play music on their cell phone using the loudspeakers while riding a bus. Now, this second part is extremely important. Do not get the truck stuck. Stick to the roads unless you know exactly what path you take and you've done that before. It's better to place a not so good garrison and take some time to do it than place none at all and lose the truck in the process. Alright, number 2. Build manpower nodes first. I've seen this happen way too many times not to mention this, and that is that most engineers build munitions nodes first. Don't. This was the right thing to do back in update 7, but now things have changed and you want to build manpower nodes first. Manpower nodes will cut the time it takes for support players to get their supplies back from 5 minutes down to 2 minutes. A massive difference. This will benefit the entire team as more players get more supplies. That means more nodes, more structures, more garrisons, more repair stations, everything. So going off that first tip, if you're an engineer and you're spawning at that first frontline garrison, there should be 100 supplies left. Build a manpower node immediately. Also, don't drop your blueprints if there's no supplies nearby, for 2 reasons. One, a node blueprint versus the actual node that's being built are almost identical on the map, so it's really hard to tell if something's built or not, which I hope they fix. The other point is that if you happen to lose that sector where you left your blueprints to the enemy, then you won't get those blueprints back, so you basically won't be able to build nodes again. So only drop the blueprints if you are 100% certain that supplies are either there or coming. And speaking of supplies, tip number 3 is drop your supplies. If you're playing support and you spawn at a garrison that has a manpower node on it, then drop your supplies. Just drop them. You'll get more back in 2 minutes, which should be more than enough time to have them ready for whatever it is you need them to put either a garrison somewhere or anything else. If everyone does this, you can have a steady stream of supplies ready at that location that other players can use to build AT guns, repair stations, nodes, and everything else. Support players have to be really proactive about this. If you're walking out somewhere and you see a squad leader, ask him if he can build a garrison. If there's an engineer, ask him if he's built his nodes, because if he hasn't, then drop your 50 supplies, he drops a manpower node, and boom, you got your 50 supplies coming in 2 minutes. It's that easy. Also, you don't have to drop your supplies exactly where someone needs them. Supplies have a 50-meter use radius, and something that happens to me quite often is I want to build a garrison behind some cover, so I ask my support player, and support player puts down the box of supplies exactly where I wanted to build the garrison, blocking that position, and now I have to go build it somewhere else. Just drop the supplies when you're close, just about anywhere. It doesn't matter because they will be gone soon enough. You do not need to run those last 20 meters and risk getting shot to get next to your squad leader. Just drop the supplies when you are within a certain distance. Alright, the fourth tip is use barricades, not bunkers. Most of the time. Barricades, which are the walls, cost 25 supplies each, and bunkers cost 75, which is the same as 3 barricades, which is basically what they are until they are fully upgraded. Now, full-on bunkers can be very useful in some areas, especially if you're playing on the German side where they are much beefier, but most of the time, a couple of barricades will do the job just fine, if not better. There are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, there's protection. In almost every situation, what you're trying to accomplish is to create some cover towards a specific angle of attack. A single barricade does this quite effectively, while a full-on bunker will also provide protection from 90 degrees to either side, which most of the time you do not actually need. Creating a large continuous wall that wraps around slightly is much more effective, and you can have some partial protection built without needing as many supplies to even get started. Barricades can be used to block line of sight into key areas to allow you to reposition or move around safely if you're trying to defend. They can also be used to block access into buildings or roads from tanks and make it harder but not impossible for the infantry to move up. I'm not saying never use bunkers, but since you need 75 supplies at once to even set them up, that means at least 2 support players need to drop supplies for you to even get started on the building. So with a standard support player, you can build 2 barricades or stare at the 50 over 75 supplies needed to build a bunker. Again, I'm not saying never use bunkers, but think about what you actually need, because most of the time 1 or 2 walls is enough. And lastly, role rotation, and this is something that I cannot stress enough. You need to switch roles. A single squad can do way more if the engineer and support players specifically switch up their roles with the other squad mates. And the best way to do this is to have either of them switch to another class entirely, like riflemen, when they die. That way, another squad mate can pick up the support or engineer role after they die and thus keep getting things done. If you're playing support and you've already dropped your supplies, then switch to something else. If you're not going to have your supplies available for the next 5 minutes, someone else should play support if you die, because you are basically less than a standard rifleman at that point. And the same goes for the engineer. Once you build your nodes and some structures, just switch to something else unless you really need a satchel charge or something. The way things work in Update 8 means you will get a lot more value from each player if you do this consistently. Obviously, this depends on the situation. If you're behind enemy lines, then you shouldn't worry about this. But if you're defending or if you're trying to flank somewhere, you should be putting down a flanking garrison or something. And if your support player still has 4 minutes to wait for his supplies to come back, then that support player needs to get shot in the head and someone else go support. I mentioned the engineer and support primarily because they are such unique classes, but the same goes for the anti-tank role to a lesser extent. If you want to cover the map in anti-tank mines, which is a really good idea, if you've capped the middle point, then go AT, put down your mines and tell someone else to do the same once you die. If you still want to play AT afterwards, you should be able to. Just talk about it. People are so afraid of communicating in this game sometimes that it's just unreal. The people playing with you are people just like you and me, so talk to them, and hey, if they react badly and don't want to give up the role again, then you probably don't want to be in their squad anyway. Alright, that's gonna do it for this video. If you do have any suggestions, comments, or other tips that you'd like to share, then please leave down a comment. And if you enjoyed this video, then check out the other videos on the channel. Maybe you find something you like, and if you do, then think about subscribing. Alright, as always, thank you for watching, and I hope I will catch you in the next one.